Hey, online English 102, Professor Berninger coming at you. Hope you're having a great Sunday. I happen to be over here at the Chatham Rural Cemetery doing some Ghenttown historian work, and I thought I'd sit and chat with you guys for a little bit. What I want to talk about is these awesome discussion board posts you did and your responses to each other. Great job, everyone. Great job. You so respectfully disagreed with each other in places that there's a future discussion board where I'm going to force you to disagree with each other, whether you do or not, right? That's a good mental exercise, and college is all about mental exercises, right? It's a good mental exercise to disagree with someone you actually agree with. You don't have to feel it in your heart, right? You can build it in your mind. Anyway, I want to go through some of your discussion board posts. And I'm sorry I can't get to all of them, so don't take it personally, but just some of the ones that brought out issues that came up throughout the board. And of course, put a little maybe wrap up on a New England nun for you. So, Cortini Bins. Louisa Ellis is a woman who is very set in her ways. Can't disagree with that. Seems as though she is much happier alone. I think she is. Though I question, is she really happy? I don't know, Courtney. Are any of us happy? Her mental health issues seemingly overpower any possibility of true happiness. Now, a little later on in a discussion board, I believe it was Madison who mentioned something about OCD, someone she knows. So OCD, if you're not familiar, is obsessive compulsive disorder. And people have this compulsion to do something. Sometimes it's to keep a house clean. Sometimes it's repetitive hand washing. Sometimes stepping on steps with their right foot first, or counting steps as they go up. It's obsessive compulsive disorder. And it's great that you guys brought that up. Louisa can't help but make you think about that. However, I don't think she suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't think she suffers at all. I don't think she feels compelled to do some of the things she does. Yeah, I find it a little weird, and apparently some of you did too, that she has to keep the books stacked a certain way. She gets down on the floor and can't believe Joe brought dust in. That she sews and unsews a seam, that she polishes windows, right? If you look at those behaviors, if we were just looking in Louisa's windows, which would be a little creepy, by the way, we would say, man, she's OCD. But once we get inside our head, which our author gets us inside Louisa's head, we see words like she is peace itself, serenity. These behaviors, though we may not engage in them, bring her enjoyment, right? It is what she chooses to do. And if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. I bet all of you, don't tell me, I don't want to hear it, all of you have things you do that you take great pleasure in. And they might be weird to somebody else. Hey, you know, I go for a bike ride, I go 60 miles and I wind up in the same spot. What? That's a little, I can see someone saying, that's kind of crazy, what are you doing that for? I think it's weird that people make believe they kill other people on video games, right? People sit up at night and shoot each other or other people, and they make believe they're killing people. As long as they're not killing actual people, hey, you know, so we all do things that others might think are a little weird, and that's fine. It's a free country. But Louisa does not feel compelled to rip the seam and sew it. She likes it, right? She likes it. So very good that you guys brought that up. You have a very keen eye for that sort of thing. Aisha, you were, actually this is Rita responding to Aisha. I do agree with you in the first part that you said Louisa is, quote, a reserved person who always likes to be by herself. Aisha, you quoted another student. That's awesome. But respectfully, I do not agree with you in the last part of what you said. What a nice way to say this, right? She lost hope of them ever going to be married. Now, the author told us she was swinging her wedding dress. I think you meant to write sewing, but I love the image of Louisa swinging her wedding dress. It means she was excited about it. All right, so great point to bring up. the story tells us, and you know, details from the story are how you make your points, okay? Details from the story are how you support your points. She was sewing her wedding dress, but the author tells us that Louisa, quote, saw her pending marriage as the inevitable conclusion of things. That's not exactly romantic, to see your impending marriage as the inevitable conclusion of things. Another place, she loved Joe Daggett, at least she considered herself to be. Put that in a Valentine's Day card. I love you, dear, at least I consider myself to be. So this is a small town in New England in the late 19th century. There's a limited number of people to marry. So she got engaged to Joe because he's a good guy. He's got a farm. She needed to get out of her family house. You know, she never loved Joe. She never loved Joe. He goes to Australia probably for mining for 14 years to make a lot of money. And he comes home, going to take up the family farm. And Louisa would have to give up her house, her hobby of distilling flowers into perfume, wearing 3 aprons because that's her thing, right? She would have to give up her everything that makes her who she is to go to a house where Joe's mother is still alive and seems like a bit of a tyrant. Joe is there, so she's definitely third in line there, right? And suddenly she has a big house to take care of, and so much for the life that she has really come to enjoy. Her feet had turned into a path so calm and serene and so set over 14 years that it would only meet a check at her grave. When you read the adjectives that describe Louisa, you've got to say, man, those sound really good. Even if her life choices don't match up with what your life choices might be. Zach Gorman. Louisa's an introvert, y'all say, who is very serious about keeping her home clean. She lives with her dog Caesar, who she always keeps chained up because of a small incident. Yeah, Zach, picking up on Caesar. Folks, this story's like 8 pages long, and there's like a whole page on Caesar. That means Caesar's important. How long has Caesar been chained up? 14 years. How long has Joe been away? 14 years. Does Caesar pretty much keep to himself? Yes. Does Louisa? Yes. Louisa, there's that great passage, and sorry, I didn't bring the story with me. Louisa looks out at Caesar and thinks of her coming marriage. Joe is planning to let Caesar loose because he's 14 years old, right? And he was bit somebody when he was puppy, but he's been chained up. And she thinks of her marriage. She imagines Caesar on the rampage, bleeding children in his path around town. Chaos. What Louisa's doing with Caesar, and Zach, I'm so glad you picked up on it, and somebody else did as well. She's projecting all her fears about marriage onto Caesar, right? Bleeding children. Louisa's probably going to have children if she gets married. And can you imagine her with a 2-year-old running around the house, flipping stuff over? Can you imagine Louisa changing a diaper? Ugh. I've never changed a diaper, and I hope I never do. And let's face it, a pregnant woman in the late 1800s, you had a pretty good chance of dying in labor. A pretty good chance of dying in labor, maybe a 10% chance. I'm not doing anything that has a 10% death rate. Maybe more than that. So her life would be tipped upside down, the life that she's gotten so accustomed to and enjoys, right? And enjoys. And she sees the rampage she sees Caesar on is the rampage that she sort of imagines her life going through, not in a good way. Quinn Hogan. Throughout the story, the author illustrates the feminine struggle of women trying to be independent while being dedicated to a man. Yeah, sort of. I like that a lot. I do think, we'll wrap things up here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. You're busy people. Our author, Mary Wilkins Freeman, is sending a simple message. You do not need to get married if you can manage financially to live on your own. We're not sure how she pulls that off, but expenses were pretty low at the time. The message is, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That's a 1970s feminist slogan. And our author is saying there's nothing wrong with being a single woman and doing things you enjoy. And that holds true in 1890 and the year 2021. There's nothing wrong with being a single woman. I think today single women are viewed differently than single men. I think single men are sort of admired. They're bachelors. They live in a bachelor pad. Hey, I got married when I was 40, lived alone for 13 years. It was awesome. But women, people are sad for them. And they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. People should do what they want to do, right? I do want to highlight one more thing from the discussion board here. Rose Santiago. Rose, I encouraged you all to be insincere or sincere in your post, but say something intelligent and well supported. Rose, you cut right into Louisa, and I thought that was great. I thought that was a great alternative viewpoint. Louisa Ellis is a cold, self-centered woman surviving a life of grief only to let it become her. Wow. A lonely woman who has accepted her fate and chosen a life of solitude. She has trained herself to enjoy the fruitfulness of her own self and has no desire to share or intertwine her life with anyone else. She's bitter, and because of that she will live an unfortunate life by herself. Accepting this fate early on has withered her hopes and dreams of a married life. Because of grief, Louisa is selfish and has chosen this life for herself. She hides behind a life of perfection, so rigid there's no room for error. This allows all of her energy to become self-indulged and self-centered. That is a great post. I completely and respectfully disagree with you. I think the author would disagree with you. But Rose, let me tell you, and everybody, you are under no obligation to buy what these authors are selling. Mary Wilkins Freeman would not be pleased with Rose's reading. Who cares, right? Think of it this way. You ever see a TV ad for Coors Light beer? The people who wrote that, they don't even agree with it. But anyway, I reject their message that Coors Light is a good beer. It's terrible, right? It's terrible. If you like Coors Light, I'm not sorry. I am sorry for you, right? I'm drinking something better if you're over 21. So anyway, feel free to reject the message the author's sending you, Rose. I love it. I love it. The author would not see her as bitter. I don't see her as bitter. I don't see her as lonely. But you do. And that is a legitimate viewpoint. I don't know whether you felt that in your heart or not. It doesn't really matter. You very nicely make a very tight, concise argument here. You could easily build that into a paper with lots of details from the story. So if you want to look it over again, hopefully you're reading all the posts on the New England Nun discussion board. Super job. I could not be any happier with the work that you guys have done on the New England Nun discussion board. We are off to a great start in this class, and I'm looking forward to more of it. So Professor Berninger signing off for now. Keep up the good work out there, people. We've got a lot of good literature coming, a lot of semester left, but you know, it already feels like it's going fast anyway. Good to see you, folks, and I will see you on the internet.